Hello, hello, the doc is in and welcome back to another chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, chapter 230. Gigi is back. It's been a week. I've been depressed. Well, actually, no, not depressed. I'm watching anime. It's great. I had to make more shorts content. That's just a fact. But nonetheless, we're talking about the manga right now. Alright, so last chapter, we ended off with Gojo dropping that domain. Sukuna got caught lacking. He was getting packed up last chapter, and so he called in Daddy Magaraga to handle the business. And I'm not even gonna lie to you, whether you want to call Sukuna a fraud for summoning Magaraga or not, Gojo's ass is about to get blasted if Magaraga and Sukuna team up, which is looking like it's about to happen. But we'll see what happens in this chapter to get an idea. But yeah, whether you want to call Sukuna a fraud for summoning Magaraga or not, cannot deny Magaraga plus Sukuna versus Gojo solo, he's getting packed up. It's just a fact. So yeah, save your complaints for the dead guy. Anyway, proceeding on, let's begin this chapter. So chapter starts off, we didn't see our audience comment on the fact that Magaraga is summoned. So we get Mei, Chozo, Yuji. Chozo and Mei, they're like, oh, Magaraga, like that's the thing. And Chozo kind of explains like what Magaraga is to Yuji real quick, and he's basically like, oh, it adapts to everything. And Yuji's like, huh, what do you mean it adapts to everything? Does it adapt to a limited void? Yes it can. And so we got Sukuna in his standing in the background, Magaraga looking giant. I don't know if Magaraga can be changed by Sukuna's cursed energy, or if the change is just that he's bigger. I can't tell if he's bigger. It's been a while. But yeah, so they're looking pretty cool. They're posted up, right? And Gojo's like, dang, I know that thing. Obviously, it was kind of obvious because he had mentioned it, I believe, last chapter, where it was like, oh, he hasn't used Magaraga yet. I wonder why. Whatever. Actually, no, it was two chapters ago. But nonetheless, he already knows what it is, right? And we get a little explanation about the difference between Gojo and Sukuna's domains. And Gojo's domain hits everything. This is specified. And Sukuna's domain hits everything in his domain except for him. Now, how is this information important? To be honest, I have no clue. I'm gonna keep it real. The way they kind of explain is that like Gojo has to hold the burden of using 5 different domains and so on and so forth. I don't know if that means that the essence of it is that basically Gojo gets hit by his own domain, and every time he uses his domain, he's basically going through unlimited void like everybody else. I don't think that's what actually happens, which is why I think this little section, these two not two panels, but these two little is it panels? Yeah, these 2 panels are a bit confusing, but we'll just go on to the next part, which is Gojo basically thinking about, okay, so did Magaraga adapt to unlimited void? He's got to think this through. He's like, okay, I know Sukuna got hit by unlimited void, but then he summoned Magaraga, which means that Magaraga shouldn't adapt it, as well as the fact that Magaraga's wheel didn't turn when he was summoned, which shouldn't mean that he's adapted to it. But then Gojo comes to the conclusion that what Sukuna did was that actually what he did was that he put Magaraga's wheel on Megami's soul, which I think is where the 2 panels come into line, where the idea is that the Magaraga wheel was put onto Megami's soul so that when Sukuna got hit, it wasn't obvious that Magaraga's wheel was adapting. Well, Magaraga was adapting to unlimited void because obviously the soul is within his body, but the soul would also be hit by Gojo's domain expansion, therefore making it so that then he could kind of like circumvent Gojo knowing that adaptation is being done, but also stopping adaptation be done. Right. So from there, Sukuna decides to dispel Magaraga. So fraud allegations must be put away. Daddy Magaraga was simply just passing by to drop off some snacks, and he's proceeding on. Continue on. Sukuna's like, oh, seems like you came up to an idea, because mind you, Gojo doesn't actually say this revelation in out loud. He just thinks it in his head, and Gojo's basically like, oh, I'm glad, it warms my heart that you're being so desperate in this fight. And Sukuna's like, talking about me. And so from there, Sukuna basically explains his plan, and he just says, well, I knew Unlimited Void would be a problem if I ever got hit by it, so I basically been preparing to get hit by it and preparing to counter it since the very beginning of this fight. And Gojo kind of retorts against Gojo's plan. Gojo basically retorts against Sukuna's plan. He's basically like, hey, Sukuna's soul didn't actually adapt Maharaga to Unlimited Void. He simply took the process of adaptation, not the results of adaptation, which is why the wheel did not turn. So, in other words, for the purposes of this fight, because again, wording in these certain panels, very confusing. The gist of it that you need to get from these two panels is that Sukuna's been preparing for this, and that's why he ended up doing things the way he did, and why he's, been playing this fight the way he has. But it didn't work exactly the way I assume you wanted it to work. I don't know. I mean, you probably knew that that Maharaga wouldn't perfectly adapt to Unlimited Void just by putting the Maharaga wheel on the Megumin Soul. But Gojo points out that, like, hey, while Maharaga can come out and dispel my domain again, if I pop it and then immediately one-shot Maharaga, you just lose again. And so Sukuna's like, you make an interesting point there, buddy, but I feel like you forgot a step. It's called, you can't open your domain. Gojo goes to open his domain. Unlimited Void. Bang. Nosebleed. Just bleeding out that nose. Little huge nosebleed. Right? As you got Yuta in the back, like, dang. So was my bad feeling correct? Yes it was. So I was bleeding all over the place, and Sukuna's like, hey, when you use your domain expansion, get the burnout curse technique, and then you heal your brain with your reverse curse technique, you're basically regenerating a destroyed part of your brain, particularly your right prefrontal cortex, which is where your cursed energy and cursed technique are stored. And as Yuta points out, and as Sukuna points out, that is basically super duper dangerous and hard to do, right? Now, given Gojo always restores his brain, he's literally doing it 100% of the time, but it's basically a risky maneuver that doing it over and over and over again, while he can do it correctly and not immediately die or lose his curse technique, it also is very taxing to pull off. So what's basically happening here is that because he's been spamming his domain, regenerating his curse technique right after, spamming his domain, and so on and so forth, he's basically been slowly killing himself, or rather wearing himself out, to the point where at this point opening a domain is basically, I don't even say counterproductive, it's just like a death sentence, as Sukuna points out, right? And so Gojo is in so much pain that he's brought to his knees. Sukuna's like, damn, hate to be you. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and pop my domain. I'll change the rules for you. I'm putting on a barrier on this one. I'm gonna cut your ass up. Alright, this is it for you. Your story ends here. And he pops the Maharaga wheel. He's like, hey. And even to be absolutely sure you get put in a good rap, I'm popping the Maharaga wheel myself to adapt to Infinity. You're done, buddy. This is it for you. So Sukuna says goodbye. How sweet of him. He's like, this is goodbye, Gojo. You were born in an era without me, and hell does the strongest, and yet you turned out to be painfully ordinary. Disrespect. Here on the Doctor channel, we respect disrespect, ironically. This cold line, I've never imagined being the GOAT your whole life. And then another nigga pulls up, bitches you, and then says, nigga, you're not the GOAT. You're just another one of these regulars. You are normie. Domain expansion. Sing your sad stories for Gojo. It's done for him. Psych. His domain expansion explodes too. My man got an eye bleed and a nosebleed. My man's packed up. Now why? As it was specifically mentioned, Sukuna has not pulled off the domain expansion heal my curse technique right after a maneuver as many times as Gojo, which is why Gojo is recoiling. Well, Sukuna simply just got hit by a limited void because it's just that broken. So it's pointed out, it's been specifically not even 10 seconds since he was hit unlimited with an unlimitable void. Now he's trying to pull off his domain expansion, meaning that now from the damage he took to his brain straight to the dome piece, he can't pop domain expansion either, meaning that this next section of the fight, no domain expansion, just squabbles in curse techniques, but just squabbles. We eating good next week. Anyway, the chapter's not over yet. I know I'm talking about next week. Chapter's not over. Gojo starts laughing at him as Sukuna starts is wiping off the blood from his eyes. He's like, it looks like you've been getting hit hard too. But nonetheless, my students is watching. I pack you up because they're watching me. I gotta show off a little. And so he pulls Sukuna in with the blue and pieces. Well, he doesn't piece him up. He just hits him with that haymaker straight to the cheek, right? And from there, we get the last 2 panels of the chapter with Yorozu's quote: "The loneliness that comes with unrivaled strength. The one who will teach you about love is." And a chapter. No me. No break next week. Let's go. So, chapter, very good. I liked it. A lot of talking, but also I'm not mad at it. It's good dialogue. It's a dramatic moment. So overall, good chapter. A couple of confusing sections. I hope I explained them well, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I ain't really understand them completely, to be honest. The most important parts is that Mahoraga is not adapted to Infinity yet, or Limitless Void. He's not adapted to it yet. Not quite. So if Gojo gets to pop his domain, Mahoraga is not adapted to the attack, meaning that it is totally feasible for Gojo to get out of that situation. 1. 2, Megami's soul, 1, exists. We got to see it. Got to see Megami looking depressed. My boy's, he's down bad. Not in the good way. It's all bad, really. So that sucks. But Sukuna has the soul maneuver. Interesting. Both of them can't use their domain expansions at the moment. These are just the facts. Gojo's domain is better than Sukuna's. This is a fact. We just seen it. Considering that Sukuna didn't even get hit by the full domain expansion before popping Mahoraga, who dispelled it, and he's chopped in terms of domain expansions. In another situation, Sukuna gets hit by that and he gets blitzed, but then he still heals back. Bro, that man's getting hit with like 5 different domains and getting beat up. I'm just keeping it real. Fraud allegations to Sukuna dispelled. He doesn't need Mahoraga, but he's gonna be in a horrible situation if he gets hit by Gojo's domain. This is a fact. These are just the facts. It's bad. Given Gojo's also in a horrible situation if he gets hit by Sukuna's domain unfeathered, because that's the truth of the matter. Truth of the matter is Sukuna couldn't protect himself. If he got hit by Gojo's domain, he's just getting packed up. So that's that. Now that was that little thing. Gojo's brain needs to heal. Sukuna's brain needs to heal. Everybody's lobotomized. That's cool. The black box thing is really interesting. Now, obviously, Sukuna has his black box ability thing, right? And we theorized that whatever this black box thing is where Sukuna stores his extra curse techniques. And Kusakabe basically referenced the fact that that part of the brain, the right prefrontal cortex, is where curse techniques are stored, and reference it being like a black box. Sukuna says black box before he opens another ability. Blah, 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 blah. You kind of get the direction we're going with. It's very specific wording to call this part of the brain that holds the curse techniques a black box, when the visual cue for Sukuna's use of his multiple abilities is literally a black box. You know, it seems to connect. But the problem with this is, well, the symbol was a black box, but that doesn't inherently mean that the opening of the ability is connected to a literal black box thing in his head. You know what I'm saying? Like, those two things don't necessarily go together. The connection's being made, obviously. Like I said, Gege didn't put the words black box for no reason. Obviously, he knows that the visual he gave when Sukuna uses multiple curse techniques is a literal black box. So it's kind of like it's going one to one. But the problem is that Kusuko is obviously referencing the fact of a computer, and Sukuna didn't learn these abilities in relation to a computer. So when you think about it that way, it's kind of like, you know, we have to kind of separate those two. So I think there's definitely something to it, and there's probably something related to the right prefrontal cortex of his brain that is being made use to allow him to store multiple curse techniques. But we don't, we don't have anything concrete. So don't get too ahead of yourself, guys. Everybody, this is all theories, anime theories. Beyond that, good chapter. They're just good chapter. Like I said, next couple of chapters we get in straight hands and curse techniques. Hands and curse techniques. We're finally going back to where we started this fight off at. Pre-domain expansions, just squabbles. I'm ready for it. Yeah, I think that's it for this chapter. Thank you for watching. See you guys in the next video. Peace.
Thank you for watching. Feel free to subscribe and watch the videos on the right. Other than that, the doc is out. Bye.